we'll see a concept called serializability. Now, what do you mean by serial schedule? The meaning of serial schedule is when there is a transaction and these two transactions is executing in a serial way. It means there is some operation of T1, there is some operation of T2. If I'll say T1 and T2 is executing in a serial way, it means T1 will execute all its operation, then T2 will execute all its operation, or T2 will execute all its operation. After that, T1 will execute all its operation. Okay, that is called serial. Non-serial means some of the transaction of T1 will, some of the operation of T1 will perform, then some of the operation of T2 will perform, then some of the operation of T1 will perform, then some of the operation of T2 will perform. That is called non-serial. Getting it? Okay. That is the difference between serial and non-serial. And that is called schedule. Schedule means how the operation of one transaction is executing and how the operation of other transaction is executing. Means what is a sequence? That is called schedule. So this is called serial schedule and this is called non-serial schedule or schedule. So when multiple transactions are executed on the system, the execution sequence of instruction of the transaction is called schedule. Okay. Sequence of instruction in the transaction, how they are executing, is called schedule. Serial schedule means the transaction Tk start its execution only on the completion of the transaction Ti. There will be the fraction n serial schedule for n transaction. So it says that either it will be T1 will execute all its operation, then T2 will execute. After that, T2 will execute, or there is a chance that T2 is executing first, and then after that, T1 is executing. That is called serial schedule. Okay. Any serial schedule S of n number of transaction is always correct, but all the non-serial schedule S are not correct. Some non-serial schedule may give an inconsistent state of the database. What this sentence is saying? This sentence is saying that if we have n number of transaction T1, T2, T3, Tn, okay, when I am adopting serial scheduling, it means any of the transaction, let's say T1 is executing first, then let's say T3 is executing, then let's say T2 is executing, then let's say T7 is executing, then let's say T6 is executing, then let's say T5 is executing, then let's say T4 is executing. Okay. So if I am executing in a serial, this is a serial way, right? Serial means one transaction, all the operation, then another transaction, all the operation, then another transaction, all the operation. If I am making a serial schedule, then always my database will be in a consistent state. I'm repeating myself. If I am adopting serial schedule, always my database will be in a consistent state. It means there will be no problem. But is it possible to make serial schedule in a multi-user database system? No. So we have to have non-serial schedule all the time. Now, what is the property of the non-serial schedule? Non-serial schedule may give you the inconsistent state in the database. It may give you the inconsistent state into the database. Okay. So any non-serial schedule there is a chance that after the execution of non-serial schedule, there may be your database will go to inconsistent state. Now, so for that, what we'll do? Thus, it is required to determine which of the non-serial schedule always give the correct result, and it is the concept of serializability. Now, we know that the non-serial schedule may give the inconsistent state. So what is the solution? The solution is we have to find out those non-serial schedule which will give the consistent state, which may give the consistent state. If we are getting a non-serial schedule which is giving the consistent state, that concept is called serializability. That concept is called serializability. I think the concept is clear. Now, what we want as a database designer, I want that whatever transaction I'll perform into the database, those transaction should give me consistent state all the time. So I have to look for the scheduling of non-serial schedule in such a way so that it will give me the correct result. That concept is called serializability. Okay. A schedule S of n transaction is said to be serializable if it is equivalent to same serial schedule of the same n transaction. Now, I am saying that if I am getting the non-serial schedule which is giving me the consistent state, I say it's serializable. But actually, how it will be done? It will be done in a way that I could get non-serial schedule in such a way which is equivalent to the serial schedule. Then definitely we know that if we have the serial schedule, it will give me the consistent state. So serializability is possible for the non-serial schedule if it is equivalent to the serial schedule. Getting it? Now how we can make the equivalent to the serial schedule, that we'll see shortly. Now there are transactions, right? There is a schedule S1 and there is schedule S2. You see that there are two transactions in a color you can see is a different color. You assume that this is T1 and this is, I'm writing in a different color. So what that color is, T2. Okay. Now what type of scheduling it is? T1 is executing all its operation, then T2 is executing all its operation. That is called serial schedule. What is called? Serial schedule. Now here what is happening? There is T1, there is T1, and in between you can see we have T2. That is called non-serial schedule. It is a non-serial schedule. Okay, it's a serial schedule. This is a non-serial schedule. Now let's talk about serializability. There are two forms of serializability equivalence. One is called conflict serializability and another is called view serializability. Okay. How we can make any non-serial schedule equivalent to the serial schedule? That is called serializability. Now, if all the conflict will be there of the non-serial schedule, just same as the serial schedule, then it is called conflict serializability. If all the views are also exists into the non-serial schedule, which is equivalent to the serial schedule, then it's called view serializability. I'm telling you this once again. If there is a non-serial schedule which is equivalent to serial schedule, then it is called serializability. It is okay. If any non-serial schedule is equivalent to serial schedule, then it's called serializability. If all the conflict of non-serial schedule is also there in the serial schedule, then this non-serial schedule is called conflict serializable. As well as if all the view of non-serial schedule is there in a all the view of non-serial schedule is there in the serial schedule, then this non-serial schedule is also called view serializable. Getting it? I am repeating once again. If the non-serial schedule is equivalent to any serial schedule, it is called serializability. If the conflict of the non-serial schedule also exists in any of the serial schedule, then it is called conflict serializable. If the view of the non-serial schedule is also exists in the serial schedule, then this particular non-serial schedule is also called view serializable. Got it? So we have to look for any possibility of serial schedule which is equivalent to non-serial schedule. So I can say that it is serializable. But if we have conflict also exists, it is called conflict serializable. If view also exists, that is called view serializable. Now let's talk about what do you mean by view and what do you mean by conflict. Okay, we'll see one by one. Now what is